Now, let's talk to the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Union Secretary General, that is Omar Olugos, joining us from a city center studio, just to paint for us a picture of what is the real situation of what's happening to the Kenyan doctors in Cuba. And Mr. Olugos, first of all, allow us to send our condolences to the entire medical fraternity following the death of this Kenyan doctor, bringing the number from 50 to 49 as we speak. But what is the exact cause of death? Because you've seen there is allegations that he committed suicide, and of course you also saw the sister, the member of parliament, saying that the brother had actually raised concern about the living conditions of Kenyan doctors in Cuba.
Thank you very much, Brenda. Well, it's a very sad moment for the family and also for the medical fraternity after the loss of Dr. Hamisi Ali Juma. And for us is to first and foremost send our deep condolences to the family, to also the colleagues who are still in Cuba, and to state that we request the Kenyans also to be a bit sensitive in their discussion of these issues. Having said that, I think we as a union hoped that we would never come to be discussing this issue. One, because we had put our position out there last year when this deal was being signed, and we had stated very clearly that Kenya was getting a road deal. And we had stated that it was going to cost the taxpayers unnecessarily too much money for no apparent benefit. To start with, the Cuban doctors who are coming, there are 100 of them. We welcomed them very well, and I want to thank the Kenyan doctors for assisting the Cuban doctors to settle in the hospitals and to really support them. There is, I think, a misguided notion in the public that that the Kenyan doctors did not welcome the Cuban doctors. Indeed, we did welcome them, even though we did not agree with the government on the deal, because doctors all over respect each other. And when they came, we assisted them settle in the hospitals, and up to now, we are helping them to translate, learn the local languages, and you know, diseases come in sometimes in culture, in language, and that those are some of the concerns that we raised. Secondly, I want to state that the 100 doctors who came, 50 of them were family medicine practitioners, and then 50 were specialists, and therefore Kenya also took a similar number, 50. What I want to state is that it is not just the Kenya Medical Association or the Kenyan universities. The training in Cuba is not recognized worldwide. So far, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, our union, have reported this issue to the WHO. We received a report from the WHO on the 19th of January this year, where we stated it is against the ethical code for WHO. There's a WHO code for recruitment of international personnel, and this code was violated by Kenya. So we as a union reported Kenya to the WHO, and Kenya will be a subject of discussion in the forthcoming World Health Assembly, so that they could explain why they are going against international standards in this kind of recruitment. Secondly, this arrangement was so unilateral. So the Kenyan government was paying the Cuban doctors 3 times the salaries of specialists locally. At the same time, they are giving them lavish houses and transport and everything, which eventually is actually good. But I think it's discriminatory, given the fact that the same Kenyan specialists were not accorded this treatment. And it is also discriminatory on the basis that some of these specialists are actually not as qualified as our specialists locally, and that is not to say that they aren't doctors. That is simply to say that even the manner in which they were vetted to come in was questionable. And I think we have raised these questions as Kenyan doctors, and we will keep to stand by this, and we will keep to say the truth, irrespective of who does not like that truth. And at this particular point of mourning,
Dr. Luga, just allow me to cut you short before
Yes.
we continue this conversation. Is that the reason as to why you're saying that Kenya got a raw deal when it came to this exchange program? Because one, it is the harsh living condition in terms of the allowances that are being given to the Kenyan doctors in Cuba. Is not you can't compare it with what the Cuban doctors are getting in Kenya. And of course, when you also talk about that family medicine training program, which is not recognized, it's before the WHO. So is that the reason as to why you're saying Kenya got a raw deal? And didn't the government realize that they're giving Kenyans a raw deal?
I think the government realized that they are giving Kenyans a raw deal. They know what they are doing. People in government are very smart. I think we know some of them. They're very sharp. But sometimes political forces take over. And when political forces take over, I think reason is thrown to the pit. Specifically about the issue of the Kenyan doctors in Cuba, when they went to Cuba, they were promised that they will be taken care of by the Ministry of Health and that they will be retained on their salaries and that the Kenyan government will look for proper housing and proper they arrived in Cuba. They were told yes, that training has since changed